Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, where we take a look at the highs and the lows from the game week just past. Joining me is Patrick Van Straten. Say hello to the beautiful people.
Hi.
And did you have a good weekend?
Yep. Did you?
Also very good. Did you watch the Football Social?
No.
Why not? 150,000 people did.
Because I'm not an imaginary person on a Russian server.
Whatever, that's cash in the bank, Daddy. Let's start with our talking point, which is Emery out and Jose Mourinho in. Obviously, a lot of this unfurling after the pretty lacklustre performance against Wolves. What do you make of it all?
Arsenal, Mourinho, I mean, like, there are so many moving parts that are all individually depressing. I mean, I'm not really surprised. Like, what happened in the Arsenal game is Arsenal went 1-0 up, and they actually carried on attacking for a little bit. And Mesut Ozil, I thought, was excellent from what I only saw the first half.
Okay.
But then they did what they always do after the interval if they're a goal up, which is they're like, oh, we're going to sit deep and defend and just let them have the ball. And I wondered if Emery was perhaps reacting to the fact that last season Arsenal got counter-attacked relentlessly against Wolves at the Emirates and drew 1-1 but should have lost like 3-1. And so I wondered if he was scared of that happening again and so just gave them all the ball. But anyway, again, they lost points from a winning position and we're seeing the rumours intensify that he's going to be out on his arse. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case after they probably lose to Leicester this coming weekend, because realistically, like, Arsenal should at the very least be able to compete with Leicester and should probably be better overall. I'd say the squad's probably at least the same level. But right now they play like a mid-table side. Like, that is 100% the team's level right now. They play like Wolves, they play like Burnley. They're not really any better than those sides. So
I'd
we
say
heard
that Burnley have a clear game plan as well, where I'm a little bit
That's
confused every time I
Yeah.
watch Arsenal as to what the end goal is.
Yeah, though at least with Burnley, though the thing with Burnley is you look at them and you're like, wow, they're playing to a plan, they're playing to a style, and they're doing as well as they can. Whereas you look at Arsenal and you think, surely they can be better than this. But anyway, it seems like the Arsenal hierarchy might be thinking the same thing, with rumours that they're kind of softening the ground up to get rid of Emery. But Duncan Castles, the official mouthpiece of Jose Mourinho, has claimed that Mourinho had dinner with Raul Sanllehi, where they discussed the potential vacancy. Now, this has been quashed by literally everybody else in the English-speaking world. In fact, Arsenal sources said Raul hasn't spoken to Jose in years.
Yeah, it's pretty emphatic, wasn't it?
Which I would not be surprised. Like, why would he? But yeah, that seems like about as bad a move as you could possibly make in response to Emery being this bad. Get somebody else in whose side played with no identity in his later years at Man United, who also couldn't put together a competent defence and who is universally hated by the Arsenal fan base. And who would cost a fortune as well. So I'm not sure I see the wisdom of this one.
Sanllehi is also an ex-Barcelona man as well, isn't he? So I think naturally he probably has his reservations about employing someone whose best football is pretty darn negative, especially given Arsenal's, long-standing history of playing a positive brand of attacking football.
Yes, but we do have Unai Emery, who is the dullest man in the world. And to be fair,
this is the point I made yesterday.
Mourinho had a good attacking side right at the beginning at United, and he had a really fun Real Madrid side.
Yeah, and Mesut Ozil was the centrepiece of that Real Madrid side, and he's had a working relationship with Mesut Ozil before, and he still has a family home in London apparently, so he wouldn't be living in a hotel. Let's see what Unai Emery had to say post-game though.
The player tried and the player worked, and the result is not good, and we lost a good opportunity here to win. Also, I think the match was equalized, but really when we were winning 1-0 against one team like that, very strong defensively, is important advantage you took, but we needed to score the second goal.
Interesting that he said we tried there, we pushed, and you did say you watched the first half and there was a little bit more emphasis on attack, but the reality was that Arsenal were outshot 24-10 by the away side. This is a Wolves side who notoriously deploy a deep block in the majority of their games, with 15 of the visitors' efforts coming inside the box. The Black Country side edging the home side as well on XG 1.5-1. So maybe a little bit fortunate to share the spoils in the end. Now, we're not going to delve too much into the game because this is all about Jose Mourinho. And part of me thinks that Unai Emery is still going to see it out until the end of the season, Pat, just because of a lack of attack-minded candidates who would be better communicators than Unai Emery. Of course, his English is maybe a little bit unfairly maligned, but then again, if you can't communicate your tactics and game plan clearly to your players, that is very obviously a stumbling block. Pressure now mounting on him and the narrative becoming a little bit hard to escape, that he's kind of on death's doorstep, so to speak, with regards to his job. He's only won 2 matches in his last 9 Premier League games, a run which inexplicably leaves Arsenal still in 5th.
Yeah, the league is terrible.
Do you think we'd be talking more about him getting the sack, or would be a little bit more confident in him being replaced if Tottenham and Manchester United weren't doing so dreadfully?
Possibly, yeah. But on the other hand, like, they're slipping further behind Leicester, which is not particularly impressive stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, definitely the fact that if the rest of the Premier League looked like it would normally look and Arsenal were just kind of mid-table, then I think you'd see concerns. But as it is right now, it's maybe Solskjaer is keeping Emery in this job.
The shining light in this game was Aubameyang, who started as captain, Arsenal's 5th captain of the season, scoring his 50th goal for the club in just 78 games. I think only 6 players have topped that record. Raul Jimenez then kind of spoiled his party, didn't he, with his 4th of the season from a pretty basic throw-in routine. Dani Ceballos completely losing his man, Moutinho just lumping it across to the back post. Not a great end to the game. And like you said, next domestic match against Leicester at the King Power. Pretty decent record against them in the modern era. Confident?
Not really. I mean, like, Leicester are playing pretty well at the moment. Like, they're not as good as their position in the table suggests, but neither are Arsenal. So, I don't know. I would expect probably to lose that game. But at this point, I don't really mind. Like, I was a bit worried that we'd scrape through and beat Wolves while putting in a terrible performance at the weekend, and Emery would get like another 6 months.
Do you know what I think sums up the start to your season perfectly? Probably just this close-up of Dave Jackson on the football social looking like this.
Yes! Oh no! Wolves. Oh David! Oh David! Oh wow, Dave, talk us through it, mate. What a goal!
He is not in the mood for that today.
11 consecutive games now, Hamill.
Rubbing salt in the wound. That is 10 consecutive games where Wolverhampton have scored. It's a new club record.
Wow, what
and look at that close-up. It's become an iconic shot on Football Daily. The disappointed David frame, we'll call it. And he looks absolutely fuming. He's having to put up with this.
It was coming.
Our first winners of the week are Chelsea. This comes from @Maddie_CHH. Another good win for the Blues.
Yes, got a bit of grief last week, didn't we, for not including them. So here they are, Chelsea fans, after beating Watford 2-1 to go 4th, 5 points ahead of Arsenal. That makes it 7 consecutive away victories in all competitions. Their joint longest winning run on the road in the club's history. It was a game that Chelsea dominated for the majority, having 67% possession, 10 shots on target to Watford's 3, and an XG of 2.21 to Watford's 1.5. Tammy Abraham netting his 9th of the season. That's his 7th in his last 6 away appearances in the league this season. Only Kevin Phillips, Edin Dzeko and Sergio Aguero have scored more in their opening 6 away games of a Premier League campaign. And it was Jorginho who supplied him with the pass of the season. Beautiful first time, not just around the houses, around the estate. And he's now been directly involved in 3 goals in his last 11 Premier League games. Already more than he managed in 37 appearances last season, where it was 2 goals and 0 assists. However, he wasn't the only midfielder to put in a standout performance, and this is what manager Frank Lampard had to say about Mateo Kovacic after the game.
His ability to play, and off him and Georgie playing together, but then that little ability to drive through midfield, which is that's not the norm. As you know, as a midfield player, it's your worst nightmare, someone that can play and then drive by you out of nowhere, and he was doing that today to great effect, so no, really pleased with him.
But to be honest, the Blues were pretty impressive across the board. Christian Pulisic putting in another good game. The American attempted and completed 4 dribbles, took 3 shots with all of them on target, and grabbed a goal. In fact, he's now been directly involved in 9 goals for Chelsea in all comps this season. Only Tammy Abraham has been involved in more, with 12, and 8 of those 9 goal involvements have come away from Stamford Bridge, including all 4 goals. So, when you'd expect Chelsea to be dropping performance-wise, Pulisic is carrying them through. 4 goals, 5 assists in 744 minutes. That's 1 every 83 minutes. As for the Hornets, though, pretty depressing times. They failed to win any of their opening 11 games to a league season for the first time in their history. They've so far drawn 5 and lost 6. The first team to do so in the Premier League since QPR in 2012-13. I don't need to tell you that campaign did not end well. Next up, they've got Norwich, so fortunately they will almost certainly score a bag of goals, seeing as Norwich cannot defend whatsoever. Chelsea, on the other hand, have got Ajax up tomorrow and then Crystal Palace next weekend. But congratulations to the Blues.
Before we delve into our first loser, if you're not subscribed to Football Daily, please click that button as displayed on screen now and turn notifications on to never miss an episode of Winners and Losers. Now, we covered Arsenal pretty extensively, so only doing one loser this week, and it's West Ham, and this comes from Sean 15 Mackenzie.
Yeah, a third defeat in 4 Premier League matches for West Ham with a surprise 3-2 loss to Newcastle at the London Stadium. Pellegrini's side now winless in 5. Only Southampton and Norwich have accumulated fewer points in that time. It's also their worst such run since December 2017. And they haven't exactly been top quality in the last few seasons. Absolutely awful display. They outshot Steve Bruce's side 16-12, not particularly surprising, but 11 of those shots came after they went 3-0 down in the 51st minute. They only put 38% of those efforts on target, while Newcastle put 75% on target, and you can see it in the footage. Like, genuinely, there are so many one-on-ones and breakaways. It could have been far, far worse. Really difficult day at the office for goalkeeper Roberto. He was at fault for Federico Fernandez's goal to make it 2-0. Possibly should have done better from Shelvey's free kick, but to be honest, he also made those one-on-one saves, and I don't know, it was just such one-way traffic for 50 minutes that I think it was inevitable they were going to concede a bunch of goals.
I only saw the free kick because I was in Football Social, obviously, and he looked like a prime case of crisp packet hands.
But it's just like, before that, like, genuinely, Sam Maximan went through twice on goal, completely unmarked, and he saved it. So I kind of don't. It feels a little bit harsh to blame him. Like, it's obviously a huge defensive issue overall. Anyway, he hasn't kept a clean sheet in 5 Premier League appearances, conceding 9 in that time. Also shipped 4 against Oxford in the EFL Cup. And look, Fabianski coming back will help. He got injured at the end of September. He had kept 3 consecutive clean sheets at that point, and the side hadn't lost since the opening day of the season. But I also think the defence overall has got worse. And they caught Newcastle actually on a pretty good day. It was their best performance of the season so far, I think. And this is what Steve Bruce had to say about the man of the match, Alain Saint-Maximin.
You know, you can see he's a handful. And what he does is, as I've said when I first got the job, he'll get people off their backsides. People enjoy watching him play because he's that little bit of different. And he's got that natural balance, which only a few have. You know, he's exciting and he's quick. And if he can learn to be a bit more clinical, then we've got a player on my hands.
Yeah, so just to pick up on what Brucey said there, let's unpick the Frenchman's performance, because he was a tour de force in his 77 minutes on the pitch. 3 shots, all on target, 1 key pass and 5 dribbles completed. He actually completed 71% of his dribbles in this game. Pretty monstrous. And it was a performance that was indicative of his season so far, to be honest. He's averaging nearly 2 key passes a game, over 2 shots, and almost 6 dribbles per 90. And this is for a team with the worst XG in the league, which is 7.7 after 11 games. Absolutely sickening. But it wasn't just him. There was a number of standout performances for the Magpies. John Joe Shelvey was excellent. He's a man that's really come back into the fold following Rafa Benitez's exit, probably the only positive for Newcastle fans. He got a goal, he hit the woodwork, made 5 tackles and interceptions, and won 2 aerial duels to boot. And in fact, his second half strike was his first ever from a direct free kick in 31 attempts, which is pretty surprising.
That is surprising.
Given as you associate those sort of long distance cultured shots with John Joe Shelvey. He's always been pretty handy.
If he'd scored the outside of the boot one from the edge of the box that almost went in the top corner, it would have been absolutely unreal.
Dirt McGirt. Also shout out to centre-back Fernandez, who, as well as scoring, won all 4 of his attempted tackles, won 3 of his aerial duels, and made 12 clearances as the Magpies. They did soak up a lot of pressure in the second half, didn't they? Almiron still looking for his Newcastle goal, but was pretty handy in this game. 4 shots, 3 on targets, 4 tackles and interceptions too, and 100% pass accuracy. The result lifts Newcastle to 15th, so there are much needed 3 points. They're now level with Burnley.
Which
Been
is
a
mental.
bit unlucky in that regard, yeah. While West Ham are just 2 places above them now, despite their good start. In 13th, like Pato kind of intimated, they've fallen apart since then. What is going wrong at the London Stadium? West Ham fans, let us know your thoughts on Pellegrini and the job he's doing in the comments and below.
Our second and final winners of the week are Sheffield United. This comes from @6FTLS. They seem to be just flying up the table at the moment.
Chris Wilder's men, the Wildlings, as we'll start calling them from here on in, demolished Burnley 3-0 at home with goals from Lundstrom, who's inexplicably down as a centre-half on fantasy football.
I assume that every player at Sheffield United is a centre-half.
And John Fleck of ex-Rangers fame. No side has conceded fewer than their 8 goals, level with Leicester in that regard, and no side has kept more than their 5 clean sheets. They just look so very bloody competent, don't they? They're now unbeaten in their last 4 as well, and their only defeat in their last 6 was that unfortunate 1-0 loss to Liverpool, where Dean Henderson had a bit of a mare. I mean, apart from that, he's been very good. That was Wijnaldum's shot, wasn't it? Just let it crawl through him. They're extremely good value for their victory here as well. Only had 45% possession, but had 13 shots to Burnley's paltry 6, with 6 on target to Burnley's, guess how many?
0.
Big fat 0. And all their goals came in the first half too, so it was a blistering first 45 with Mousse, who now has 3 goals and 3 assists in just over 260 minutes this term, assisting all 3, goal contribution every 43 minutes subsequently for him. He's now just the 9th player in history to register 3 assists in the first half of a Premier League game, and the first for a newly promoted side since Darren Huckabee, who was an absolute G back in the day, for Norwich in 2005. The last time the Blades were in the Premier League in 2006-07, it took them until the 2nd of December to collect this many points. So they're well ahead of schedule, aren't they? And well, not ahead of schedule because they got relegated that season, didn't they? So avoid that schedule. And they conceded 20 goals too by them, rather than the 8 they have this campaign. Chris Wilder, love him in post-matches, typically forthright following this game, claiming the club had to raise their game going into this season. Let's have a little listen from him.
Well, we talked about it at the start of the season that everybody's got to raise their game, whether it's coaches, staff, manager, and most importantly players. And we feel John's one of a number that have really took to the Premier League and produced really good performances. Enda Stevens, George Baldock. You know, we don't get the results and the performances that we've had out of the players so far, and without them raising their game. The key now is to show that consistency.
Yeah, disappointing result for Burnley, and they are actually in bad form when you just look at their results. 3 consecutive losses with 9 goals conceded, as many as they'd conceded in their previous 8 outings. That form's seen them drop from 7th on the 5th of October to 14th now. They're just 4 points above 18th place Southampton. 0.72 expected goals they managed in this game. That's actually only their 4th lowest total this season. But I do still think they've been unlucky. I thought they were unlucky against Chelsea. And to be honest, some of their attacking performances this season have been very impressive, but they simply cannot buy a win on the road. Winless in their last 8 Premier League away games. That's their longest run since their first 17 on the road in 2016-17. They haven't kept a clean sheet in any of their last 13 away games since a goalless draw against Watford in January. Jesus. Anyway, though, good performances from a few Sheffield United players. Oliver Norwood, good again, 4 tackles and interceptions, 4 aerial duels won, 2 dribbles. See, they are all centre-backs. 4 aerial duels won for Oliver Norwood. What's he up to? Unbelievable. Lys Mousse as well, 3 aerial duels won, 3 dribbles, 4 key passes, obviously the 3 assists. And Lundstrom, those 2 goals, 86% pass accuracy, 3 tackles, 1 key pass, 5 shots with 3 on target.
Not bad for a centre-half.
Mental.
Yeah.
Next up, though, an away game at Spurs for Sheffield United, and then home to Man United. So it will be, I was going to say it'll be a test of their form, but to be honest, they'll probably just beat both those sides right now. They're rubbish.
Yeah, and there we have it. That is the end of the show. What a note to end on. And if you've enjoyed this primo content, then go and check out our latest and greatest Extra Time podcast. One of my favourite for a while, actually. Yeah, we're picking a team to save from relegation in the Premier League. And make sure you stay tuned for your roundup after this as well. Normally goes live at 5, short of any editing issues. Have I left anything out there?
No, that was good. Comprehensive.
Bang. Done. Bye.